Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of World Hockey Report. That is right. I am one of the new hosts on this show, the insider to the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. Glad to be aboard here on World Hockey Report. Hashtag WHR every Tuesdays, because Tuesdays, guys, as you know, is Tuesdays at 2 with Tyler. Every single Tuesday through these playoffs, guys, at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, 4 o'clock Eastern Time for your lovely fans on the Eastern Seaboard. That is excited to be aboard. I'll get to a little bit about myself here in just a moment so you guys don't think I'm an absolute loony. But of course, as always, we are live here in the Pro Rock Broadcast Studios. Be sure to follow us, guys. I got to let you know that right off the hop at World Hockey RPT. But of course, if you're watching that, you know that because you guys are smart. You guys are knowing that World Hockey Report is where to go every single day for your latest hockey news and, of course, great hockey content. And, you know, just to kind of give you guys a good idea, if you're just joining us and you haven't been following us at World Hockey RPT, just letting you guys know, 3 times a week, every single time, here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Hockey Podcast Network live, 2 o'clock on Tuesdays Mountain Time, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, and then Cody Janzen and I will kind of split Thursdays. It'll be around the noon o'clock hour, 2 o'clock Eastern Time as well. And then, of course, Cody usually holding the usual lunch hour as well on noon on Wednesday. So 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, extended playoff coverage because, as we'll talk about today, there's a lot going on right now, and we're not even at the playoffs yet. Let me tell you guys, this is going to be a fun little ride here. I'm glad you can join us here. As you probably can see, if you're watching us, of course, on the Hockey Podcast Network or 12 Ounce Sports or Zingo TV, you notice that I'm wearing a We the North shirt. Yes, I am a Toronto Raptors fan. I know this is a hockey program, but repping the boys. A big win in Game 5 last night. Game 6 at Scotiabank Arena coming up on Thursday night. A little excited. I could have busted out my Jays shirt because that was a pretty good win as well for the Blue Jays. So a lot of great stuff going down in Toronto land, of course. I know some of you in the Alberta area not too caring about Toronto, but you know what? Hey, listen, I got to go to the parade for the Toronto Raptors in 2019. My wife and I got to do that, so that was a blast indeed. So, like I said, we're going to get to have a lot of fun here. Of course, some of you might remember me because I've been on World Hockey Report with Janner a few times. So I'd like to think I'm familiar with you guys, and hopefully some of you are familiar with moi. It'll be fun. We're going to have a great time when we get to all this as well. So, a lot to get to, though, today for this first show with me, Tuesdays at 2 o'clock with Tyler. That name has got to start pending because Tuesdays at 2 with Tyler. I'm just going to tie up my tongue by saying that. But we have a couple of awesome guests coming up on this show, coming up here in about a little less than 20 minutes time, about 15 minutes now that I'm rambling on here. We're going to have Bruce LeVine, the radio host of the Dallas Stars, joining us on the program. He and I are going to talk about the Dallas Stars, of course. They have a big game coming up tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. And I don't think to pretty much say anything that this game is a do-or-die game for the Vegas Golden Knights. They lose in regulation. Dallas gets the spot in the playoffs, Vegas eliminated, and the 8 teams in the Western Conference will be set. So we'll get to that matchup, how important that is. Obviously, we'll talk about what's gone on with Vegas because, that soap opera continues with the amount of crazy news. And poor Rob, the story with Robin Lehner, obviously, we're going to get to that here in spades. But we also got coming up here at the top of hour 2, we might go a full 2 hours today. I'm just saying. But at the top of the next hour, the 3 o'clock hour, we're going to have Isha Jahromi coming on. That's right, the co-founder of the Hockey Podcast Network and the host of the Soda Pod with your boy State of Hoppy. We're going to talk about the Minnesota Wild, of course. They're getting ready for a playoff series, and because, you know what, this might be the best Minnesota Wild team of all time. Also, we're going to be sure to chat with a couple of good guys as well. We're going to talk about the Vancouver Canucks because, obviously, Romy, he's from that neck of the woods, and we need to talk about how good that team was. And be sure to obviously get in the chat if you guys want. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, on the Hockey Podcast Network, or 12 Ounce Sports, jump in the chat with us. Throw some questions our way, my way, Bruce's way, Isha's way, Romy's way, whatever. And get involved. Let's have some fun here on World Hockey Report. And we already got Jack Ike goal is Jacob's daddy. Jacob loves THPN. Well, thank you, Jacob. And Vegas still has a chance. Let's go. Never count us out. Yeah, we'll get to that story here in just a moment's time. But we have a lot of news that happened here today, guys. That's why I knew this was going to be a jam-packed show, start to finish, front to back, side to side, cover to cover, whatever you want to call it. Coffee is kicking at the right time. But before I get too far into the news, I think from us here at World Hockey Report, didn't get a chance to address it. This past weekend, we lost probably one of the greatest players to play the game and one of the greatest Montreal Canadiens of all time. Guy Lafleur passing away. Had a long battle with illness, and it's 2 weeks in a row that we've lost two great French-Canadian hockey players. And maybe not just French Canadians. I'm talking great hockey players. Two masterful scorers. And, Lafleur, the blonde hair, the flying. He was a member of that great Flying Frenchman team in the 70s, 4 straight Stanley Cups. Yes, as you can probably figure out, I am not of that age to really say how good he was live. I'm a little bit of a hockey historian, though. Like, this guy was magnificent. Like, if you go look up the stats in his junior career in Quebec, like, Mario Lemieux beat those records, sure, in the 80s. But Guy Lafleur was crazy. Guy Lafleur was amazing. He was majestic. And here's the best part. He played pond hockey. Scotty Bowman used to talk about how he hated Guy Lafleur because he couldn't run a system. We have a power play guy. It's Guy Lafleur. No, can't do it. Like, that's the crazy part. And obviously a lot of people remember the series, all the series against Boston. Guy Lafleur, of course, feeding the game winner in the 78 final in the Boston Garden for Montreal, part of those 4 straight cups. And why I always say I love talking about Guy Lafleur and not being able to run a power play, watch that goal that tied Game 7 of the 79 semis against the Bruins. You remember the infamous too many men on the ice call? Guy Lafleur gets the goal because why? He's just, I have the puck and I'm going to throw it on ahead. And there's Jacques Lemaire. Yeah, Jacques Lemaire, the defensive specialist, defensive coach, and drops it back, and a one-timer from 65 feet out, it felt like 55 feet out, whatever, scores that goal, a power play goal. Not a power play goal at all, just a on-the-rush power play goal. So, yeah, no, looking back on him, he was amazing. So, obviously, condolences with the Lafleur family. Great tribute in the first game back for Montreal on Sunday night. The ovation, typical what you would hear for Guy Lafleur, whether he was in the building, but obviously some, with the good Lord above. I mean, I tell you, he was a fantastic hockey player. All you need to do is go watch the videos, look at the numbers, and talk to people that got to watch him firsthand. He was something else. So now, first of all, the City Life Project. Welcome back, Tyler. Well, thank you, Mr. City Life Project, Mr. or Mrs. The City Life Project. Thank you very much. Let's see. Cody Janzen in the year 2089. Oilers winning the Stanley Cup. That a boy, Janner. Yeah, 2089. Hey, we got maybe a little tease for next Tuesday's show. Next Tuesday, Tyler, at 2:00. We might have someone that might know a thing or two about the Edmonton Oilers. In our tab, what does Vegas do in the offseason if playoffs are not made? That's a great way to get into this discussion because obviously we've heard the news. Robin Lehner getting season-ending shoulder surgery. Now, Emily Kaplan broke this a few days ago of ESPN. Yes, Emily Kaplan. I know a lot of you say, ESPN, what do they do with the NHL? Well, Emily Kaplan's there, and she's been doing a kick-ass job for years now, even when they didn't have the TV rights deal. But she reported that Robin Lehner needed surgery before he went under the knife. Now, as a goaltender, Robin Lehner's had a tough year. I think we all can agree that the Vegas Golden Knights have had a tough year. But the problem is the fact that he had to stay in the lineup. Logan Thompson starting the game the other night for the Vegas Golden Knights, and Lehner has to sit on the bench because of cap reasons. And I know it's annoying to some people talking about the salary cap. I get that. It's we're nuances. It's a flat cap. I know I've said it 100,000 times. We've all said it, but here's the problem. Yes, Jack Eichel, Logan Thompson, Joe Goy left. I do feel for some of the players of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, the upper brass, that's a discussion we might have to get into here in a minute. Maybe later on we have Romy. because just about 10 minutes time, we're going to have Bruce LeVine coming on here from the Dallas Stars, talk about the Dallas Stars. So, and obviously we can probably get into that discussion as well, because that's who the Stars are playing tonight. Big game there. Dallas has a chance to eliminate Vegas and also clinch a playoff spot themselves. But that's just been the story with this year for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, getting Jack Eichel did not put Vegas any further salary cap crunch. This team was in a salary cap crunch in August of 2021. They were in a salary cap crunch at the end of the playoffs last year. I mean, there's a reason why Mark Stone had to sit out so long. I mean, yes, I know it was LTIR and he was still hurt. And listen, 18 mil over the cap, guys. I mean, you saw it last year with Tampa. Vegas kind of was trying to have that the case this year. So Leonard having to sit on the bench just because they needed to, make sure they had, they were cap compliant, is kind of the pinnacle of this story of the fact that the Vegas Golden Knights can't find a way to, kind of get out of their own way with money. I mean, they always want to get the new shiny thing, and that's why the Seattle Kraken this year has been a little bit of a bummer, because I really enjoyed, I love Everett Fitzhugh, first of all, the radio voice of the Kraken. I met him when he was working down in Cincinnati in the ECHL. But, they did it the way everyone else did it in the expansion era. You go in there, you get a bunch of players, what you can, you get a bunch of draft picks when you trade them, and you're going to stink. You know what? Vegas didn't do that. And unfortunately, Vegas is still trying in the win now mode. And guess what? It might bite them in the butt tonight. If they don't win this hockey game against Dallas, kaput. The rest of their games don't matter. And so having Robin Leonard here, and I don't know, Leonard has obviously been a very vocal person. I know he deleted his Twitter because obviously it was getting a little too hectic for him, and I obviously understand the guy has had bouts with mental illness before, and that's something we can never take too seriously here. So, yeah, I would like to know what he's going to say this coming off season, because he's a very outspoken individual. And what's he going to say about the management and how this team has been ran by Kelly McCrimmon? Obviously, go up to the top to ownership. Peter DeBoer, how this team has been ran as a coach. So, the Soda Pod jumping on in there. The Vegas Golden Knights making everyone happy if they do not make the playoffs. Now, we did throw out a poll today on the old Twitter side here. And let me pull up the actual numbers. We asked how happy would people be if Vegas did not make the playoffs. Now, we don't try to pick on teams here on World Hockey Report. We just speak the truth. But let's look at the polls that we have. Let me have to scroll down a little bit here. Here we go. Right now it's only less than 100 votes, but you guys can check it out. Go to @WorldHockeyRPT and submit your vote. Would you be happy if the Vegas Golden Knights missed the playoffs? Right now, 71% say yes, 29% say no. Shout out to the 29% of the Vegas Golden Knights fans that chimed in. Obviously, your boy Jack Eichel stepping on in here as well to try to defend his team. So this is obviously going to be a really big game tonight for Dallas and Vegas. Vegas with their season on the line. Let's see, TPBN. Yes, the basketball, or TPBN saying go THPN WHR. Thank you very much there. Beer Sports Whatever Podcast. Hi, I sub. You should sub too. Oh, yes. Thank you very much, the Beer Sports Network. Everyone should sub. If you're watching us right now, whether you're watching us on 12 Ounce Sports, at the Hockey Podcast Network, hit the subscribe button. Go ahead. Why not? It's right there, right? It's down over there, I think, if I remember YouTube correctly. And, of course, follow us, too. Make sure you give us a follow on our Instagram. World Hockey Report's on TikTok now. Yeah, check us out there as well. Follow us everywhere on your favorite social media platforms. Making sure I'm not running out of time here, even though I am, because in about 5 minutes' time, we got Bruce LeVine coming on here. Like I said, there's a lot of news that happened today, not just the Vegas Golden Knights debacle. I'm talking there's all this other stuff. News from the game on Sunday, the kerfuffle down in Sunshine State. The Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning got into another fight, and a hockey game broke out. 8-4 win for Tampa. That stops the 13-game win streak for Florida. Ryan Lomberg, though, decided to attack Eric Chernak for who knows what reason. He gets a 1-game suspension for that. Andrew Burnett gets fined $10,000. The whole craziness with all of that. And it looks like right now, as it stands, they will not play each other in the first round. Because even if, since the Washington Capitals are so far back, they could not, whoever comes out of the Atlantic Division in a wild card spot would end up going to the Metro. So they're going to flip-flop. So right now, as it stands, it's going to be Boston taking on I should have looked up the stats. Is it the Rangers right now? The Metro is actually competitive in terms of who can finish at the top. Obviously not so much in the Atlantic because it's going to be Florida about to clinch the President's Trophy. I mean, my goodness, this team has been excellent all season long. Right now it's Carolina. So it'll be Carolina versus Boston in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll give you a rundown of the games tonight later on as well on the show. But mention a lot of the news that happened today with, obviously, the big one for me, big women's hockey guy here. Hence, the last few times I was on World Hockey Report, we talked about the PHF, PWHPA, and whatnot. Well, the Premier Hockey Federation announcing two big moves today, announcing a new commissioner. Obviously, Tyler Tominia stepping down after the Isabel Cup playoffs this year. They bring in Reagan Carey as the new commissioner. Carey, who is the general manager of the 2018 United States women's team, the team that beat Canada in a shootout in a gold medal game. Shouldn't be the case. Thankfully, it's not anymore because of that game. But regardless, she knows how to create a team. And obviously, she has the vision that's supposed to help the Premier Hockey Federation go into a new era where they're starting to really become a professional women's hockey league. Now, yes, there was the news recently about the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association coming out with a potential league. Nothing official yet, but it's looking like the PWHPA might have a better setup than the PHF in terms of benefits and compensation, but the PHF is right behind them. So, well, then again, I should say PHF is behind them if the league comes out for the PWHPA, because right now the PHF is the only one that has it set in stone. The $25 million being distributed into the league, $750,000 salary cap. Great stuff for the league. Carries a part of it now. And also the Premier Hockey Federation's Players Association, getting the two mixed up. Too many P's, too many letters for me, kids. The PHFPA has announced a new executive director, that being Nicole Kuehl. So, lots of stuff going on in the PHF and the women's game right now, of course. Like we mentioned, we're all waiting on pins and needles for the announcement from the PWHPA. Another international news, the IIHF announcing that they're taking away the 2023 World Hockey Championships from Russia, which was kind of the speculation that it might happen, but it wasn't for sure, wasn't set in stone until today. No replacement place has been added yet. Obviously, Finland is taking over the World Championships this year. There's talks it might be Switzerland. Canada might be in the running. We'll have to wait and see. These are things we can obviously discuss a little bit later as well. So we got a lot to talk about today because, like I said, we got to talk about a big playoff matchup tonight. Quick rundown of the couple of games here that we got going on tonight. Rest in peace, Canadian Women's Hockey League, SodaPod. Listen, the C-Dub is pretty much what the PWHPA is now. And by the way, another great podcast. I know I don't know if I should be going crazy on looking at other shows, but what was the Noxie and Cax show on another network, it's association with the Professional Women's Players Hockey Association. They had like Marie-Philippe Poulin, Jocelyn The Rock, so many great players on their show. Talks about what it's like being a women's hockey player. So just check it out so you kind of have an idea. We got a break, though, because you want to know why, guys? Because on the other side, Bruce LeVine, the host of the radio side of the Dallas Stars, will be talking about the Stars. We'll get his takes on Vegas and more here on World Hockey Report when we come back right after this.
Hockey fans, feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Take your game to the next level with Pro Rock hockey sticks. Pro Rock is changing the way we buy top-of-the-line twigs. They're lightweight, balanced, and provide the perfect kick point, whether you're a pro hockey player or a beer league legend. Pro Rock hockey sticks are made for you. They're at a price point you can't beat, so check them out today at prorock.com. Play like a Pro Rock.
Hockey fans feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Hockey Contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure here on World Hockey Report, Kuehl here, to welcome the radio host of the Dallas Stars, the man to my right or your left if you're watching on the YouTube channels of the Hockey Podcast Network or 12 Ounce Sports. It is Bruce LeVine. Bruce, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Tyler. How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually pretty good. Obviously, today's been a wild day in general for hockey because so much news has popped out, and we were talking about right before we went to break, we were discussing the IIHF taking away next year's World Championships from Russia, and it got me thinking, because having you on here, you know, for those that don't know, it's been about a year and maybe a couple days since we actually met, Bruce, because you and I got the chance last year to be down in Texas, obviously your neck of the woods, and call some under-18 men's hockey action. And I tell you, that was pretty fun. Of course, the under-18's going on right now. And what were your favorite memories of that, Bruce? Was it working with one scruffy-looking blondie kid or something like that? Was that the best part?
I enjoyed working with you. You were prepared. You were excited to be there. You got a couple of rounds of golf in, which was important.
Apparently, yeah, we found out, folks, that 3 rounds of golf, even if you work the entire week, 3 rounds of golf when you travel is considered a vacation. So Bruce made sure we talked about that the last time.
You got that in. That was a good trip. But you know what? I look at the players that we saw, and some of these guys are going to be big-time names in the NHL next year. I look at Simon Edvinsson from Sweden, who didn't have a great tournament, but boy, Detroit is just thrilled with what he's doing. And I look at Mason McTavish, who's going to go to Anaheim, probably going to be there next year with that young core of talent they have coming up. There's a lot of big names. There's a couple people in this year's draft. And of course, Shane Wright and Connor Bedard. Yeah, we're going to be hearing a lot of them. And I really feel like we got to see some of the future NHL stars up close and personal. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun tournament. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, right now they are in Germany. Unfortunately, Hockey TV is not taking care of it this year. As much as I would love to be there, I think it would probably cost a little bit, Bruce, for them to pay us to both fly out there and stuff like that. So,
yeah, it's out of budget is what they call it.
That's exactly what they call it. But yeah, no, it was a fun tournament, and you mentioned all the great players. I mean, Connor Bedard, of course, going back there, and Connor Bedard is already climbing up the ranks for all-time under-18 scorers, and he also could play next year if he really wanted to. That's how crazy that is. And of course, we got to see Matvei Michkov and so many great other players at that tournament. We're actually going to be having Stephen Ellis from the Hockey News next week to talk about the under-18, so be sure to stay tuned for next Tuesday's show here on World Hockey Report, currently joined by Bruce LeVine of the Dallas Stars. And Bruce, When I reached out to you about coming on today's show, because obviously we knew Dallas was in the thick of this playoff race, you said, all right, perfect. Can we make it work? Because it's only going to be the biggest game of the season. Because one of the other things that happened last year when we were working together down at Plano was the fact that we saw, or at least we got to be in the same area when Nashville took on Dallas at Bridgestone Arena, and it was that 1-0 overtime game that knocked the Stars out. Now we're here almost 365 days later, deja vu, but this time, Dallas is not the one chasing. How do you feel going into this matchup tonight with the Vegas Golden Knights?
Well, first of all, on behalf of Dallas and their fans, I want to thank San Jose for what they pulled off Sunday night. That was a big gut punch for Vegas. Even if they were to win tonight, Dallas could win their last 2 games and still make the playoffs. So it's not do or die for the Stars. Although you're at home, you have a chance to clinch your ticket to the playoffs and knock out the other team. I would expect a much robust performance from the Dallas Stars tonight. The biggest thing is Dallas, except for goaltending, is healthy this year. Last year, Rope Hintz played basically on one leg the last half of the season, had to take some days off. Radulov wasn't around. Sagan was still recovering. This team was beaten up badly, and they had to play 4 games in 6 nights for 11 straight weeks, which under normal circumstances is a Herculean task. Last year, they just couldn't get it done. This year, they're as healthy as they can be at this time of the year. Their players are ready to go. You look at that top line of going left to right. Robertson, Hintz, Pavelski, who's been the Stars' leading line all year, they're ready to go tonight. So from the Dallas Stars' point of view, there are no excuses for not getting to the playoffs this week. 3 home games. You got Vegas. You've got Arizona tomorrow night. You've got Anaheim on Friday. If Saturday rolls around and the Stars aren't in the playoffs, there is something very, very wrong with the Dallas Stars.
Hey, listen, Carl Velmelka, man, he sometimes does that thing where he just makes like 7 big saves and whatnot. Shout out to the Soda Pod jumping in the chat room there saying, go Dallas, which is weird, Bruce, because, well, I don't mean to be that guy, but the reason why you have a job is because a team left Minnesota to go play in Dallas. I'm sure it's weird a guy from the land of the state of hockey is cheering for the Stars. That's kind of weird, right?
It's kind of weird until you remember who we're playing against tonight. I think Vegas has grown as the Darth Vader of the NHL for their, shall we say, creative use of long-term IR. And a lot of people
18 million over the cap, Bruce. 18 million over the cap.
Well, not technically, though. I mean, let's put it this way. If Vegas was a person, Saul Goodman would be their lawyer. That's what we're looking at here. But it's also sort of come back to bite them a bit in the fact that Robin Leonard is hurt, can't play. Well, you can't bring Laurent Brossoit off the IR, even if he is healthy enough to play. You can't bring him in. And by the way, Brossoit is 2-0 against the Stars this year. Can't bring him in. Would Riley Smith help their case? They're going to play 11 forward, 7 defensemen because you can't bring somebody else off because they're in salary cap jail. So they've sort of put themselves in a tough position. But a lot of people around the NHL and fans are like, okay, the LTIR is there for a purpose. This is just abuse. And they want to see Vegas pay the price. So even though somebody from the Twin Cities might be a little bit mad for Dallas leaving back in the 90s, I think the enmity toward Vegas right now and their salary cap creativity is really striking the chord around the league.
Yeah, we were mentioning the poll we ran today because that was the question of the day. How happy would people be if Vegas didn't make the playoffs? And over 70% right now, Bruce, are on the side of saying, yes, if Vegas missed the playoffs, I apologize. Because remember, Bruce, back in our day, of course, you were there in the early 90s. You remember how it was for expansion teams. They were built to stink. And Seattle's kind of showing that this season. And Vegas didn't do that, unfortunately. And by the way, Inortap getting on in there for the chat saying, there is still a scenario that where Nashville, Vegas, and Dallas all finish tied. Yes, regulation wins would determine the 2 wild card spots for that tiebreaker. But that's, of course, if Vegas wins tonight in regulation and Dallas somehow loses, to Bruce's point, somehow to Arizona and then Anaheim, who is without Ryan Getzlaf. We should make that very clear. He is done with his storied career. Congratulations to him, of course, on a great career with the Ducks. But there is a slight chance, but very unlikely. But let's get to the Stars team as itself. Because we talked about in spades, you and I talked, what was it, August or whatever, we were talking about how this Stars team, if they can stay healthy, everyone can stay healthy, will be perfect. And while it's been a little bit tough for Braden Holtby, I know, coming in, but the goaltending has not been bad, Bruce. And it's been because of this surging goaltender, this young kid from Boston University, Jake Ottinger. I know he's been there for a couple of years, but he's really had a good coming out party this year in the Dallas net.
He's had a good coming out party, but it's sort of been a forced coming out party. The plan was in training camp, you've got Holtby, you've got Anton Khudobin, who last year, people don't know, he really suffered. He had a horrible case of COVID between the bubble and the start of the season last year, and he never fully recovered. So you think you got Holtby, you've got Khudobin. Ben Bishop was at training camp, and people were saying, okay, the hope was that, give Bish 3-4 more months to get on the ice and recover. And then when February, after the All-Star break and March rolls around, they're going to work Ben Bishop back in, and you're going to have Ben Bishop ready for the stretch run in this time of the year. Well, Ben Bishop's career is over. Anton Khudobin had hip surgery. His career is in jeopardy. And Braden Holtby hasn't been on the ice with the team since February. So Jake Ottinger, who was supposed to play this year in the AHL, gets called up. And then after the All-Star break, it's Jake's team. Now, Jake has done admirably well. He has been pretty much the savior in net, and he's done great for a 23-year-old. But here's the thing, and you played net. When you go from playing a career high of 38 games, that's the most he's ever played in a career season before. This year, between the AHL and the NHL, tonight he'll be playing, I believe, game number 57. So you're going from the most ever being 38 to 57. And there'll probably be a 58 somewhere along the way. And you're doing it under the spotlight of playing every night, trying to carry your team into the playoffs. So how is he handling this mentally? How is he going through the grind physically? You look at his numbers from earlier this year, since March 1st, he's had a bit of a drop. He's had some, his numbers, his goals against aren't as good. His save percentage isn't as good. But at the end of the day, most nights he gives his team a chance to win. Against Seattle the other night, Stars fell behind 2-0. There was a deflection and a rebound that wasn't his fault. And then the first 6 minutes of the second period, he made 4 saves that were grade A robbery in front of the net. And then the Stars scored 3 goals and win. So Ottinger at 23 is learning, and he's learning how to get there and learning how to play. We talked to Rick Bowness this morning, and he said, you know what? We don't know how he's going to respond. He's never been here before, but there's only one way to find out. And don't forget one thing, Tyler, is Jake Ottinger was groomed for this moment. I know it sounds strange, but as a high school freshman, he played in the Minnesota State Hockey Championship game. 20,000 people as a high school freshman. He's played in the World Championship. He's played in the World U18 Championship. He's played in the World Junior Championship. He's played in the NCAA tournament. Every step along the way, Jake Ottinger has played on the highest level. This is as high as it gets. Let's see how he does tonight. Stars are really hoping that as the 23-year-old that he plays to his pedigree, and then your goaltending situation is set for the next 10 years. One more interesting fun fact, if you want to hear this.
Yeah.
The Dallas Stars in their entire history have traded up in the first round once. You're talking since the day they moved from Minnesota to 2021, which covers almost 30 years. They've only traded up in the first round once. The year was 2017. The player they took was Jake Ottinger.
Look at that. It's almost like fate was meant for it. And I'll be honest with you, I know he hasn't played nearly as much since he came over, but former Plymouth Whaler Scott Wedgwood, I think, has been that right there. I remember that first game against Carolina, Bruce. I said to myself, oh my gosh, this is the Wedgwood from 10 years ago. I know obviously in a playoff race, you got to have your number one guy going, but certainly it's almost a good thing to have a guy like Wedgwood, the way he's played since joining Dallas, knowing that especially given the fact that, like you mentioned, you have 2 more games before the regular season's over. And if you do win tonight, knock on wood, you may have to give Ottinger a couple nights off, but that Wedgwood could step in.
Well, not only that, but if the Stars don't win tonight, Wedgwood's going to have to save the season probably tomorrow night against Arizona.
Right.
So You've got Wedgwood. Well, the funny thing is Wedgwood has stood on his head several times this year. First of all, the first time I really noticed him was he was playing for Arizona and he beat the Stars in Glendale in front of close family and friends, but he still did it. And that's when he got back on the Stars' radar. The game against Carolina was amazing. He shut out Tampa here.
Yep.
Wedgwood has stolen some crucial points down the stretch. Only difference is Wedgwood's never been down the stretch before in a situation where it was make or break. So, this is one of those things where if you had Bishop in the locker room or Holtby in the locker room, and this is no slam to Wedgwood, who's been great. You've got two goalies who are going through the pressure of the situation for the first time ever together, and they can't give anybody advice, and they can't compare notes because they've never done this before. And that's what makes it so interesting for the Dallas Stars is pressure something they're going to thrive on or something that's going to throttle them? Are they going to know how to deal with it? Can they even take a pregame nap today because of what's happening? These are all things they got to figure out. It's not easy to do. John Cooper talks about, remember, Andre Vasilevsky is a pretty good goalie.
Yeah.
I think we all agree on that. How did he do in 2018 when Tampa was it 2018? Yeah. 2018, 17, 18? When Tampa was the President's Cup winner and the number one seed in the East, and they faced Columbus.
19, yeah.
19, okay, 2019, right. How'd that go?
Did 4 and out.
Yeah, so these are things you've got to, there's only one way to learn it. And that's, you can't read a manual, you can't watch a YouTube video, you've got to go out there and do it. And that's what the Stars are about to find out. And, Vasilevsky learned the hard way. Even Ben Bishop had to go through 8 years of being in the minors and being in the pros before he became Ben Bishop. Jonathan Quick, all these guys who won cups had to learn how to win. And that's something you can't find anywhere else but on the ice.
I still remember Ben Bishop. This would be, holy cow, 14, 15 years ago, watching him in Peoria when he was a Blues prospect. That's how long ago that was. And the Peoria Rivermen are in the SPHL now. They're not even an American League team anymore. That's how long ago this was. And Ortap gets back into the chat. He says, for the entertainment of hockey, a Vegas-Colorado matchup musters more interest than competition between Dallas and Colorado. Now, hold on, Bruce. First of all, yes, I think a Vegas-Colorado series, that would have been a great rivalry given how last year's playoffs ended for the Avalanche. However, Bruce, you and I know a little bit about Dallas and Colorado because as of right now, as it stands, it would be Colorado taking on the Stars in the first round if the playoffs started today. Obviously, a couple more days for that. Nashville right now is holding that first wildcard spot. If we go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, Bruce, the Stars and the Avalanche were underlying sneakishly one of the best playoff rivalries in the game at that time. I mean, you look at the two teams that go out, you had Eddie Belfour, Patrick Waugh going head-to-head, Joe Nieuwendyk, Mike Modano, Darian Hatcher for the Stars, the Avalanche, of course, with Sakic and Forsberg and Ray Bourque, obviously, in that 2000 series, which people forget about. Ray Bourque lost that first year before winning the Cup in 2001. The Stars and Avalanche used to be must-see TV back in the day.
And there were a couple of epic Game 7s at the old Reunion Arena where it wasn't the guys who you thought. It was guys like Mike Keane and Dave Reed who provided the wins for Dallas, the goals that mattered. But the last minute, I believe it was it Forsberg? Or I think it was Forsberg. Someone hit the post behind Eddie Belfour.
Was that the 99 or the 2000 series?
I think it was 99. Was it 99? Someone hit the post behind Belfour with about a minute to go. But there were some great games, and you had the Reunion Arena crowd who were always chanting "Eddie's better" to Patrick Waugh, and you had Modano and Hull. And you know what? Those teams they would never let on how beaten up they were at the end of those series, and how much it took out of them to get to that next level. But when you're playing for a Stanley Cup, if you're not hurt, if you don't have ice bags and IVs, you're not playing for the Stanley Cup. You're probably golfing somewhere. And those were some fantastic series. And people also, quick reminder, the bubble. Dallas beat Colorado in Game 7 in the bubble. Yoel Kiviranta, the game of his life, the hat trick, including the game winner in overtime to send Colorado home. And I don't think the Avalanche have really gotten over that because, they were down. Their top two goalies went down. Eric Johnson went down.
I was about to say, Michael Hutchinson was their goaltender in Game 7. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ben Bishop got hurt. So Anton Khudobin was in net for the Stars. And the only reason that Kiviranta was even in that game is because Andrew Cogliano got hurt and couldn't play, and they needed to put somebody else in. So there is some history there, and there is the divisional matchup. Yeah, you know what? Yes, Vegas does make for better scripting because after April 29th, they're going to get like 6 people back on their roster if they make it. Riley Smith, Brossois, Nolan Patrick are all going to be magically healthy again. So it does make it for a better script of good versus evil. But from the Dallas Stars point of view, this season, and we said this when we talked back in August, this is pretty much the last, John Klingberg's a UFA after this year. Alexander Radulov has not earned the right to come back, at least under the contract he's under. You're looking at changes. This is the last dance for this core that has gotten Dallas through, to the Stanley Cup final, gotten them the Winter Classic, beat Nashville in a playoff series in 2019. So there's a lot going for the veterans here who want to prove they want one more kick at a run at the Cup. And maybe Dallas will play Calgary instead, and you can have Calgary plays Nashville tonight. Who knows where that winds up? There's still a lot of things juggling in the air, but I understand why fans want to see the Colorado, LA, Vegas situation. But from the Stars' point of view, they just want to get in.
It's going to be crazy because that was the weird part, because I think you and I talked about this a little bit last year. Like, people thought after the 2020 run, like Dallas maybe was kind of punching above their weight class, getting within 2 wins of the Stanley Cup, and that's why you saw Jamie Benn after that game just so defeated, because he knew that might have been his best chance. But the playoffs are a grind. Weird stuff happens. Nashville can go in as a wild card team, the 8th team in the Western Conference, then go within 2 games of beating the Pittsburgh Penguins back in 2017. The playoffs are dumb and the playoffs are weird. But speaking of dumb and weird, Joe Pavelski. We thought the Fountain of Youth was with Roberto Luongo down in Florida. That's where the legend has it, Pirates of the Caribbean, what have you. Where is it in Dallas for Joe Pavelski? What is he like? What does he consume to be the leading scorer on this hockey club, showing that Captain America hasn't missed a beat?
You know what? They found, not that Pavelski wouldn't be doing this anyway. I mean, it took him a little bit to really catch up. And, his first half season, up until the COVID break, Pavelski struggled to find his footing with the Dallas Stars. You want to talk about weird and wild for the playoffs, going back to the bubble. If Pavelski doesn't score with the goalie pulled in Game 4 against Calgary in the first round, Dallas may go 5 and out and be done in the bubble. What's happening with Pavelski now is, first of all, his work ethic is amazing. On my Twitter feed, I posted about a month and a half ago, pregame skate. I'm there. By the way, it's pregame skate to me, not morning skate. It'll always be pregame skate to me, because that's
you can be wrong about some things, Bruce. It's okay. I won't hold it against you.
So pregame skate, he's out there before anyone else, and he's got Joel Hanley, who's one of our defensemen, firing 10 pucks from the left point, and Pavelski's in front of the net. Tip, 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 deflection, redirect. 10 pucks from the middle. Pavelski, same drill. 10 pucks from the other point, same thing. Pavelski's work ethic is amazing. It's fantastic. He knows how to play the game. He's got a great hockey IQ. But they've also found him 2 line mates, Rope Hintz, who can stretch the defense and create gaps, and Jason Robertson, who can finish, but also knows how to set things up, hangs onto the puck, knows how to set things up. So Pavelski is the perfect, I would say, trifecta to that group, because he's the guy that knows how to go to the nets, knows how to get open, knows where to be to score goals. So he's found the Fountain of Youth in his work ethic and how he handles himself, but he's also found 2 youngsters that play and think the game as one with him. So they've got this thing going, and the amazing thing is, we call him the Avengers line, of course, Captain America being the lead there. They've scored 102 goals combined this year. The rest of the Dallas Stars forwards have scored 96. So if you were to remove those 3 guys, Dallas would be in so much trouble. I mean, for injury or whatever, Dallas wouldn't even be talking about a playoff spot. That one line with Pavelski being the spiritual leader has carried this team to where it is now.
Just walks into the locker room every single day and he's like, Avengers! Assemble! Like every game, and it's worked. I mean, my goodness. And that's been the crazy thing. Like Jason Robertson too. Like I remember this kid, the first time I heard about him, he was tearing things up in Kingston in the Ontario League. Obviously, him and his brother Nick are fantastic hockey players. Nick, obviously, in the Toronto Maple Leaf system right now, even though there's a weird size difference between the two. It's kind of funny to me. But I remember Robertson, he was so good that the Niagara Ice Dogs traded 2 players and 11 draft picks to Kingston to get Jason Robertson. Now, I know that's not legal in the National Hockey League, but that's how good this kid was in junior hockey. And everything that we saw back then with the Fronts and the Ice Dogs, it looks like it's really starting to pay off this year with the Dallas Stars.
Funny story about Jason Robertson. He fell to the second round because people felt he wasn't a good enough skater to play in the NHL.
Right.
Jason Robertson, the Dallas Stars had him as a first rounder, but in 2017, they had already taken Miro Heiskanen and traded up to get Jake Ottinger. So they figured, okay, we can't do a third to get this guy. They did not think he was going to fall to 38th in the draft. But the minute he fell, they pounced all over him and felt like they got 3 first rounders that year. What Jason Robertson has done is, yes, he's worked on his skating and he's improved it. So he can play at the NHL level as a skater. But what he's also been able to do is he now reads the game at the NHL level. He knows when to hold the puck. He knows when to shoot the puck. He knows when to try to make the passes, make the plays. And he's no longer a liability in his own zone. When he first came up, he couldn't read and react in the defensive zone. Now he's not a liability. He's pretty good in the defensive zone. So what Jason Robertson's been able to do this year is take the good parts of his game that you saw in the OHL, the scoring, the vision, the ability to create plays. He's taken that with him, but he's also taken his weaknesses and made them either adequate or good enough to where he's a top-notch player. And the skating comes to the top of the list. And, of course, being able to play that 200-foot game that Dallas really sort of depends on has also done that as well. He plays power play, and he's on the ice at the end of games. If Dallas ever wins a cup, they're going to look back at that 2017 draft and go, this is where it began.
And that's really all it is. I mean, that's why people always say, hence why Vegas is such a, like the heel, if you will, to go into a wrestling term here, is because the fact that they're buying all these guys. They are the NWO. They're bringing in all the, the veteran players, and they're paying big money. And then there's teams like Dallas that are working the hard way. Radulov obviously was a pickup. We can all go into that, and Wedgwood was a trade. But you mentioned Ottinger, you mentioned Robertson, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin obviously being brought in from the Bruins. Like, this is a team that's grown together over the years. And that's why maybe people like them a little bit more than Vegas right now. Last thing, Bruce, before we let you go here. By the way, Bruce LeVine, I had this in my notes. I forgot to mention it. Former broadcaster for the Louisiana Ice Gators. I totally forgot about that one. A little flashback there. Was that the SPHL or was that the CHL?
That was the ECHL back in the.
They were in the ECHL back in the day. That's right.
Back in the midnight, and that's when I spent several weeks in Peoria. Peoria was in the ECHL back then, and
they bounced because they went from the IHL down to the ECHL before going back to the American League. Peoria did. That's right.
Right. So I've spent several weeks in Peoria.
Oh man, it's interesting town. I've been there myself too. Played some. There's a college team there. Bradley played my club college days. A couple games against them. But the last thing here, and like we said, Dallas still has to clinch a spot, as does Nashville as well. Big game though tonight, like we mentioned, against the Vegas Golden Knights. Logan Thompson, of course, starting for the Vegas Golden Knights because no Robin Lehner. But doing a quick little, not a super far look ahead, but we mentioned the matchup possibly with Colorado. Or if Dallas can move into that top wild card spot, they would end up getting Calgary. Calgary, like we mentioned, was another part of that 2020 run of the Cup final. That very weird Game 6, the clinching game, when Matthew Tkachuk was out and Dallas went down, but then they came roaring back. That probably one of the strangest games I've seen in some time. And of course, that was a very strange time we were living in, Bruce, as you remember, hence why the bubble. Who would you rather see the Stars play right now, Calgary or Colorado?
Okay, this is not a Calgary or Colorado, in my opinion. It's a Central Division versus Pacific Division. You'd rather play in the Pacific Division simply because if you look at the records of Colorado, Minnesota, St. Louis, if whoever gets through the first round, the next matchup is going to be even harder. I know that's the way it's supposed to be, but it's going to be significantly harder. If you look at St. Louis and Minnesota and the numbers they've put up this year and the records they've put up, this is why so many people, Tyler, want to see the league go back to a 1-8.
Yes.
Because if you're Colorado and you win, let's just say that Minnesota, I think Minnesota's third in the conference right now, I believe in the Western Conference.
I had it up here a second ago. Where is it right now? Minnesota's second, or no, it's Minnesota and St. Louis are tied at 109 points right now.
Right. And Calgary's got what?
Yeah. Or Calgary's got 108. No, I don't, or no. Yeah. Calgary's got 108. Yeah. 3 points.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you look at this, you go, you're the number 1 seed and you win your your first playoff series. Your reward is you get to play the number 3 seed. That seems a bit harsh.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it, Edmonton's had their ups and downs. LA is still beaten up. Calgary is a good team, but the path through the Pacific, just if you look at the body of work done for the entire season, is an easier path. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's easier comparatively to going through the Central Division, because that is going to be an absolute meat grind. St. Louis, Minnesota is going to be a meat grinder of a series.
Oh yeah.
And then your reward for that is you get to play Colorado. That's why so many people want to see the league go to your 2 division leaders are 1-2, then let's rank them by points so that you don't have this situation where, and this happened to the Dallas Stars in 2016. They were the number 1 team in the conference. And then in the second round, they played St. Louis and lost to Ken Hitchcock's team in 7. And I think St. Louis was the second best team in the conference of the regular season, or the third best, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So
was it Brian Elliott and Yaroslav Halak that year, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's why people want to see the league go from the divisional to, okay, we know that the teams can play. Let's do the conference 1 through 8. So at least there is a tangible reward for being the 3rd best team in the conference, not having to play the 4th best team in the conference in the first round. So from the Stars or even Nashville's point of view, you want to go to the Pacific and avoid that absolute terror that's going to be the first 2 rounds in the Central.
Yeah, there's going to probably be Edmonton, LA right now. There's a lot of playoff scenarios that could be determined tonight across the league. Big Tuesday night, of course, in the National Hockey League, including this game between Vegas and Dallas. Bruce is going to be the one on the radio, of course, side of things, teeing that one up later on the Dallas Stars Hockey. Is it Dallas Stars Radio Network, or what is the title?
It's the Hockey Network. We do simulcasting, so we jump in with our really important opinions, and I say that very loosely. Pre-game, post-game, and intermission. It's on the Ticket, 1310 in Dallas. We listen to iHeartRadio, not iHeart. Ooh, that's going to get me in trouble.
Oh boy,
the Ticket. Yeah, can we erase that? It'll be on the Sports Day app. Ooh, that's going to get me in so much trouble.
Or if you're like me, you go on your phone, you have the NHL app. They have all the radio feeds on there. That's how I listen to you guys all the time, Bruce.
And there we are. Well, feel free to call in tonight if the Stars clinch.
Oh boy, my wife be like, Tyler, don't you have to work? Because I got the morning shift this week at my radio station, so I got to be up at 2:00. So if the game goes to a 20-round shootout, you'll be my first phone call in the morning.
What possibly is going on in the world that needs to study for at 2 a.m.?
Exactly. I don't know. I got to cut it. It's news anchoring. It's a fun gig. You have to tell people the news that early in the morning. We've been chatting up here with Bruce LeVine, guys. Be sure to follow him at Bruce LeVine Puck on Twitter. He'll be giving updates throughout the entire game tonight, and of course, knock on wood, throughout the season and postseason for the Dallas Stars playoff run. Whoever they play, we'll have to wait and see. Bruce, thanks again for taking the time today, and always good catching up with you. We'll have to chat down the line again.
Tyler, it's always a pleasure anytime.
All right, that was Bruce LeVine from the Dallas Stars Radio Network. Always a fun guy to chat with. One of my favorites, and like I said, having met him last year, that was an absolute joy. We're going to get to a break here in just a little bit. Sorry we couldn't get to your question there in ORTAP. Can the inconsistency that Dallas has had all year long, just saw the question, be directly attributed to Seguin and Ben's play during the year? You got to remember, though, that Tyler Seguin was kind of banged up a little bit dating back to last season. He's really just kind of starting to get his stride. And Jamie Benn, his style of play, it's starting to wear on him a little bit. So, obviously when Bruce said, you have top end scoring, it does help when you have one line that's really clicking like that, having a top line. But yeah, the depth's going to be tough. And that's why Bruce said he'd rather go to the Pacific Division and play Calgary and then maybe Edmonton or LA than have to go to the Central, then play Colorado and then possibly St. Louis and or Minnesota. But guys, do you need a new hockey stick? All the big brands keep raising their prices, making the game more unaffordable than ever. But you don't have to fall for that, though. Check out Pro Rock Hockey Sticks, a true Canadian company with real morals, offering players of all levels a top-of-the-line stick at a fraction of the cost. It's lighter, more balanced, and has more customizable options than anything off the rack. Check out the family-run business today at prorock.com. Of course, we are here in the Pro Rock studios here on World Hockey Report. Thank you all for joining us today. The first Tuesdays with Tyler at 2. Somehow those three T's were going to get jumbled together. We're not going to go with any campaign for sure. And by the way, yes, NORTAP, a 1 to 8 ranking does not really produce, he says, that many differences in terms of matchups. 1 through 16 would be better suited, but I understand the cost element. And I love what you say that there, because I'm like I said, I'm a hockey historian, Nortap. That's how it used to be till I think 1983 or 84, because that's when the league went to, because when the WHA came in, they brought in, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Hartford, Quebec. When those teams came in the league, they had, I think that made it 21 teams, because they saw the Rockies, that's right, before they moved to New Jersey. And they did a 1-16 format for, I think, 5 or 6 seasons before they went to the 4 teams from the Norris, 4 from the Smythe, 4 from the Patrick, and 4 from the Adams. They had 1-16. So yes, the best team in the league would play in theory, with 21 teams, the 5th worst team in the league. Like, that's how crazy it was. And back in the day, I remember, if you ever want to go at Toronto Maple Leafs fans back in the 80s, how'd this team make the playoffs? Well, you could go 35-45. They play 82 games back then. I forgot how many they played, but you could win 35 games or 30 games and maybe 25 games in some divisions and make the playoffs. That's how weird the league was, especially when you had the Colorado Rockies and the early days of the New Jersey Devils back then. It was pretty easy to make the playoffs. So that's why nowadays there's the talk of the play-in round, because the NBA does it and what have you. But all sorts of interesting stuff here. A couple more of the matchups tonight while we have a minute before we're joined by Isha Jahromi on the other side of the break. Some other games tonight. Toronto taking on... Oh, Romi's trying to get in here. All right. Well, in that case, folks, we're going to take a quick break because Romy wants to come in. We'll get the games and more coming up here on World Hockey Report.
What's up, man?
Hockey fans, feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold, hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Hockey Contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Take your game to the next level with Pro Rock hockey sticks. Pro Rock is changing the way we buy top-of-the-line twigs. They're lightweight, balanced, and provide the perfect kick point, whether you're a pro hockey player or a beer league legend. Pro Rock hockey sticks are made for you. They're at a price point you can't beat, so check them out today at prorock.com. Play like a Pro Rock.
Hockey fans, feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold, hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Hockey Contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
And welcome back, folks, here to World Hockey Report. I am Tyler Kuehl here for this lovely edition of WHR Tuesdays with Tyler at 2 o'clock. And I am now joined by the co-founder, of the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as the host of the Soda Pod. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Isha Jahromi. Isha, how you doing today, my man? I always got to give you the full name and give me something happened here. All right, hold on a second. Here we go. We had an issue with the desktop audio. Do we got you now? Where'd you go? All right. Quick pause, folks. We'll be right back here because technical difficulties, of course. Back with more of the World Hockey Report right after this.
Hockey fans, feel the action like never before with Draftkings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available yet, you can still hit the ice for cold.
All right, let's try this again. Welcome back to World Hockey Report. I am joined now by the co-founder of the Hockey Podcast Network, also the host of one of the BC Hockey Podcast as well, one of the great guys out there from the Hawaii of Canada, as his Twitter says. It's Romy. Romy, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. Now, I just want to say, I know it was you, Cody. He's trying to sabotage my podcast hit with you, Tyler, because he's jealous. He's jealous that I didn't answer the bell last time with him and that I said I'd give you more than 20 minutes here today. So just so everybody knows, you can blame Janner over there for that whole audio issue.
See, you got to remember, though, Janner does a lot more than I do, so I have a lot more free time on my hands. I think Janner's one of the busiest guys I've ever met, and so, yeah, he probably, I'm thankfully enough, able to chat with you here, and Janner and I, the times I've jumped on as a guest on World Hockey Report, we have to try to actively make sure we stick it to 20 minutes sometimes because there's other guests and whatnot, because Cody does a great job, of course, hosting the Wednesday at noon edition of World Hockey Report and Thursdays at noon as well, coming up here for the extended playoff coverage here on hashtag WHR. Be sure to, of course, follow us, guys, at World Hockey RPT, and follow this guy, Romy, at VI Sports Talk. Romy, first of all, I'm glad to be part of your World Hockey Report, obviously on 12 Ounce Sports as well, but the Hockey Podcast Network, because the last time we talked on my old show that I used to run, I gave you a little bit of props because I tell you, the networks, you guys, because it's not just hockey. You got the Hoops Network, you got the Pigskin Podcast Network. I mean, you guys are doing some great stuff over there.
Oh, thanks, man. It's a lot of work. It's a small staff, a little team. Dylan, myself, and former TSN producer Brandon Berwicki. I mean, we keep the ships afloat, and it's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun. This is the funnest part, though, being able to do things like this and connecting with everybody. I just got back from an extended Minnesota trip and did a tour there for the Soda Pod. Almost every single brewery that we brought on the podcast, as well as all of Minnesota Wild Twitter, it felt like. So that's just the best part of doing this all. I mean, the work is good. It was great that we were able to create jobs for ourselves in a pandemic and, bring these networks to life and giving a bunch of independent content creators, the outlet to do so, grow each other's show, make a little cash on the side, and it's been a fun ride.
Oh, it's always a fun ride. And of course, you guys got to remind you, though, obviously, we're not just on the Hockey Podcast Network. We're on 12 Ounce Sports. And if you're always looking to add to that closet this summer, go check out 12ouncesportsradio.com/store for all of your World Hockey Report merch. Because, Romy, we got some cool stuff here at World Hockey Report.
Dude, those white hoodies
and everything in
those
between.
white hoodies.
12ouncesportsradio.com/store has you covered with your hashtag WHR swag. Had to get that in there because giving you guys love, got to give 12 Ounce some love, too. They're helping us out as well. But talk about
Dude,
that
my
trip a
first
little bit,
show, my
for
first
those
show
that-
was
I mean,
on
like I
12
said,
Ounce
follow
Sports.
you at VI Sports Talk because like it looked like it was a lot of fun. Now I myself, I live literally within walking distance of a brewery over here, so that's always fun for me because I get to go get some good craft brews and whatnot. Not a total beer snob. I just like the taste of good beer. What kind of trip was that like for you?
Dude, it was awesome. Like I said, meeting all the people was the highlight of it. I mean, everybody who works at a brewery or who owns a brewery, like it's a passion project because you're not making any money out of the gate. And especially during a pandemic, like we met some brewery owners who had to fire their entire staff and their goal became, let's not start making money again. Let's hire back all of our staff before we get back to normal. And that's what's really cool. The beer itself, I'm not a beer snob by any means either. I'll drink pretty much anything, but it was cool to learn a little bit more. And I thought British Columbia and Alberta were pretty we're pretty far ahead as far as the craft beer game in Canada. Dude, we're like 10 years behind Minnesota from like barrel-aged sours to barrel-aged beers and just the whole science of it all. I literally walked through like science labs and breweries there, where here it's a lot more hippie. It's a lot more grassroots. It's just a little bit behind. So that was really cool. And then, like you said, icing on the cake was meeting all the other creators around Minnesota Wild and Minnesota Sports Twitter and all the people who do the podcasts and content out there. Didn't get to see everyone due to a bunch of scheduling stuff as like the Timberwolves were playing their play-in game. So some friends of ours like K-Fan and Score North and whatnot. I mean, they were busy covering the game, but got to hit up the XL Energy Center for one game that actually... which was the game where Ryan Hartman flipped Evander Kane the bird and the Minnesota Wild defeated the Edmonton Oilers 5-1. And I was able to connect with some fans of the Soda Pod and fellow content creators out there. Shout out Jessie Pierce of Bar Down Beauties. I know she's appeared on World Hockey Report a few times as well.
Oh yeah, I know. And that's what like the best part. Like I keep telling my wife, if we're gonna move somewhere, like not for career purposes or anything like that, if we're gonna move somewhere just for the fun of it, like we're gonna go to Minnesota. And she's going to tough out being in the snow because that's how pretty much the weather is, 10 months out. It's New Canada is what I like to call it. That's pretty much what it is compared to some parts. But it's certainly a fun trip. But let's talk about the Wild here, right? I mean, like you said, you and Hoppy do an amazing job on the Soda Pod, not just talking about amazing beer, but dare we say, no, folks, this is not 2003. And someone from 2015 is hopping in their time machine and saying, what do you mean, Tyler? An amazing hockey team here for the Minnesota Wild. Like, this is crazy. I looked at this team coming in the year. I'm like, okay, this is the year. They're going to be in cap, starting next season because of the buyouts with Parise and Suter. So they have to go for it this year. They bring in Kaprizov. They get him back. They were able to sign him for a good deal. And, a couple additions here and there. And this team is one of the best teams in the National Hockey League.
Dude, it's awesome. And a lot of people called that they would be a good team this year. I think a lot of people were more confident in the Wild than they even were the Blues, and that's taking nothing away from the Blues, who are like the silent killer in the West right now. They're one of the best versions of the Blues ever. I'd say even close to on par, to their Stanley Cup team, but that's another story. The Wild right now are breaking their own franchise records left, right, and center. Kirill Kaprizov reaching 100 points, well above Gabrick's, 82, 83, which was his, which was the franchise leader in single season points. Kaprizov shatters 45 goals, 58 assists, and 103 points in 78 games. There's still games left this season for Kirill Kaprizov. The not only superstar in the Wild franchise, but a superstar NHL wide that is not really being marketed the same way as, an Ovechkin who entered the league at that time. But again, I digress. Kevin Fiala, people are saying, oh, this is his coming out party. No, Kevin Fiala has been this dynamic, this good at scoring goals almost his entire career. He's just had nobody to play with. And that, I think, is a huge factor of why he's been, quote unquote, inconsistent. I mean, 84 points, 33 goals in 79 games. And how about I don't even want to say it's a resurgence. I just want to say the chemistry of Matt Zuccarello and Kirill Kaprizov. 79 points for Zuccarello. I don't know if he's going to come back during the rest of the final games this season, as he has a lower body injury. It's nothing serious, but Dean Evison / Creed Bratton, coach of the Minnesota Wild, said that they're going to keep him out because, quote unquote, it's that time of the year. Joel Eriksson Ek, bang for your buck. Fredrick Goudreau, he's doing well. How about Matt Boldy too? with the chemistry with Kevin Fiala. This guy, I mean, getting robbed of no even Calder nomination here with 38 points in 44 games. There's a lot to talk about on this team. I'm leaving a ton of names off, that whole tangent right there. But it just goes to show that this team is doing all of that, and they don't have a top center. Hell, they don't even have a second line center. Sure, Ek is their second line center, but Ek is the type of center that you want as firmly your third line center on a Stanley Cup team. And this team has 2 second lines and 2 third line respectively. Cool build. It's crazy what they're doing this year.
Somewhere Colton Sissons from the Nashville Predators is like, I remember 2017. I had to go up against Crosby every single game. It was horrible. And by the way, to your point, yeah, Matt Boldy's been great, and it is a shame he's not getting Calder consideration, but I don't know if anyone's heard about this, but this Lucas Raymond and this Mo Seider in Detroit are pretty good hockey players, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It was a tough year for him to have his first year in the league, that's for sure.
Half year too, right? Because he started in Iowa. They called him up because he was point per game there and he was crushing it, right? They're hopeful top center, knock on every wood piece possible in this office, that Marco Rossi pans out next year, can jump into a top 6 role, maybe the year after, really get those tougher matchups. But you don't want to rush your top center, and you don't want to rush someone who could be cheap against the cap, as you alluded to in the opening segment here.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting because they're gonna. Billy Guerin's going to have to, try to smooth someone over from Tampa to try to figure out how in the world that they're going to figure out a way to work the cap next year. Dylan Kaiser saying, who is this guy? And this is Isha Jahromi jumping on here with us here for the World Hockey Report. Or wait, is he talking about me? Oh, yeah. My name's Tyler, by the way. I'm one of the hosts of World Hockey Report, Tuesdays with Tyler at 2. Here every single week for the playoffs. That's who I am, Dylan. Nice to meet you. But getting back to Minnesota here, this team has 4 guys with 50 or more points, Romy. And that's one of the things that I kind of caught my eye, because don't forget, it was a year ago that Eric Stahl was one of the top guys on this hockey club. Or 2 years ago, pardon me. Eric Stahl was one of the top guys on this hockey club. And, that was kind of a sign that, like, man, this team's okay, but that's a problem that they needed to address. And sure, I mean, obviously, Kirill Kaprizov has been a big help there. But the last time this happened, that you had more than 2 guys with 50-plus points, you have to go back to the 17-18 season, the year they did not have a fun time with the Winnipeg Jets in the first round of the playoffs, to find a team that's had more than 2 50-point guys on their roster for the Minnesota Wild. To the question I have once again here, Romy, is this the best Minnesota Wild team ever?
Oh, hands down. Like, dude, the amount of they've had 50 wins this season, the first time in franchise history. Like I said, they had 2 players who amassed more points than their franchise leader. One, I'm not saying he's taken a lap of it, but over 20 more. And they were able, again, without top centers, which is crazy, to get the most out of an aging Matt Zuccarello, who I never really gave up on. I think he's going to play fine. He's only 34 years old. But Ryan Hartman, who's, yes, was drafted in the first round, who had that talent when he was a younger guy to be drafted that high, but no one thought he was going to put up 62 points, 33 goals, being the physical guy and just kind of rat that he's been for the Wild this year. Same goes with Fredrick Goudreau, a very respectable 42 points as well. I mean, Marcus Foligno, 22 points. I mean, there's just so much depth to this team, is where I've said, even though their defense is not the same in years past, guys, like, people have to start talking about Jonas Brodin. Like, no one can shut down McDavid like this guy. That, when I went to go watch the game, Minnesota Wild against the Edmonton Oilers, I was hoping, part of the reason why I was excited for that game was, I get to see McDavid live for the first time and skate. I want to see everyone keeps, talking about his speed in real time. I want to see it. I didn't notice McDavid at all, and that's a credit to Jonas Brodin, who played 28 minutes and 1 second more than Connor McDavid did that night. So their defense, a shadow of what it was, as far as having, like, pretty much top 4 guys, throughout all 6 of their defensive spots, but they're still really, really, really good in Spurgeon and Brodin leading the charge. Dumba, he's injured right now anyways, and I doubt he's going to come back next season. They're not going to re-sign him if they're going to keep Kevin Fiala, which seems like a necessity now moving forward.
Yeah, it's one of those questions. Of course, Dumba's been on the proverbial trade block for
his entire career.
The Obama administration. I mean, that's probably how long it's been since how long he's been on that guy. I mean, you go back to before the Guerin era here with the Minnesota Wild. By the way, hello, Ray Neal Soto, Vegas Golden Knights fan by his avatar there. Probably does not want to listen to the first half of the show. We talked about the Vegas Golden Knights possibly being eliminated from playoff contention. Before we move on with the Wild, do you have a thought on that, Romy? Dallas wins tonight. They clinch a spot. Vegas done. I mean, what is your take on the saga, the soap opera that is the Vegas Golden Knights this season?
Dude, Vegas can F right off, and same with their fans. This is like, I am grinning ear to ear. Jacob loves THPN. I know you're in the chat. How do you like that, boy? How do you like that? That's what I have to say.
Dylan going all caps. Romy, he's got you.
By the way, Dylan's the
Cody Janzen Blues in 4. Oh wow. Okay, Janner. Nice for you to jump back in there. Of course, then again, he probably ran off when we had our mics on during the commercial break. He probably ran and hit under a rock when that happened. But let's look at. Do we quick have the total? Last time I checked, our question of the day, Romy, was how many people would be happy to see Vegas get knocked out. Right now, still sitting a little over 70%. So it's more or less just. Do you think it's because this was not supposed to happen to an expansion team? Because I think the first year, I'll admit, I was happy to see Ovechkin win, but Vegas getting to the finals that first year was pretty cool. But it seems like almost after that, after the weird game against San Jose in 2019 in the first round when Pavelski went down and San Jose had that crazy comeback on the, let's be honest, a botched call. After that, it just seems like nobody wanted Vegas to win anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I'm a Capitals fan. Like I'm an Ovechkin fan. I'll say that. So I was rooting for them, 100%. It was, and I think that the reason why everyone they were the lovable team because they were truly a ragtag team at that point. They're a shadow of what they are or what they've been the last few years. Last 2 years, we'll say, which is an elite team in the National Hockey League. They weren't supposed to get there, and that was the beauty about it. And now that they were supposed to get there, now that despite the injuries that they faced, because yes, that's a huge factor, but with their roster right now, it's just amazing. It's like in the NBA when the super teams don't even make the playoffs, and you're just laughing. It's amazing. The fans need some pain, okay? They need some Minnesota sports fan pain.
That would be, listen, that'd be nice. I've always loved the Minnesota fan base because no matter what sport it is, you can see with the Timberwolves right now.
Oh my God,
they cheer for everything. I'm a footy fan myself. Soccer for you American listeners and watchers out there. I love Minnesota United because I'm a Toronto FC guy. Sorry, I know that's going to I'm wearing a Toronto Raptors shirt right now, so I could probably give that away. But I love the Minnesota United fans, the supporters there. They are awesome people. They're willing to go out and watch Team USA when it's 25 degrees in CONCACAF qualifying action. So that is crazy. Cody Janzen, feel bad for Vegas fans. So many years of disappointment. That a boy, Janner. Dylan says, Isha, I've never referred to you as Romeo before. I may have to change that now. Well, apparently, no. I gave him his full name, and Romy's like, why are you calling me Isha for? I'm like, because that's your name. People are just calling me Cooler the rest of my life, which I guess I was called that, but we're talking about how Vegas kind of turned heel. I keep using that term for wrestling fans out there. I'm sorry. Turned to be the bad guys, the Darth Vaders, if you will, the evil empire. People are waiting for Emperor Palpatine, Kelly McCrimmon to go down the chute and somehow come back 4 movies later. Anyways, Star Wars stuff. One of the big things, obviously, with Vegas, kind of people turning a sour note on them, was how they treated Marc-Andre Fleury. Now, here we are in, it's April 26, 2022. How many of us would have thought 5 years ago that Marc-Andre Fleury would have been part of a good goaltending tandem with the Minnesota Wild? Romy, how is that the case?
No idea. I was one of those who was pretty gutted that they moved on from Kakkonen. I thought there was a lot of potential still there. He proved it in the past. Talbot got most of the starts. I'd say, and this is probably almost on the dot, 80 to 85% of the starts this season. So I don't know why Fleury was Billy Guerin's guy. Maybe they obviously had a relationship. They played on the same team before. Billy Guerin's time in Pittsburgh and management, that there's obviously a connection there. So maybe they've been talking. So anyways, regardless of that, I wasn't upset, but I wasn't on the Fleury train at all, nor am I really on it right now. So I'm still in disbelief. I think Cam Talbot has earned the starting spot. Look, a goalie, it doesn't play perfect all season, unless you're Thatcher Demko, of course.
Right. Who we'll get to in a minute. We'll get to him.
Yeah. Or Markstrom, which just pains my heart. But anyways, Talbot had his ups in the beginning of the season, had his downs halfway through, and he's back now with, I guess, some healthy competition behind him. But I felt like it always should have been there because Kakkonen was kind of quote unquote the future. The point of bringing in Talbot for 3 years on that contract was to kind of give Kakkonen time behind him to develop. And Kakkonen hasn't been doing too well in San Jose, which, I mean, I don't blame him for that. It's an absolute tire fire over there. But long and the short of it, I'm still baffled. I really am. And I hope he rises to the occasion, because though Marc-Andre Fleury's had some excellent playoff performances, he's also had some ones that still cause Penguins fans nightmares to this day.
Oh gosh, I know they beat Columbus in, what was it, 2015, but that goal against Nick Foligno at Nationwide there, it's a great moment for Columbus Blue Jackets fans. The cannon goes off, the place goes crazy, an overtime winner, but it was a week.
Yeah, it was
Go back
bad.
and look it up. It might have been, was it 15 or it was one of the series between Columbus and Pittsburgh that started having fans hate each other, all that good stuff. So gosh almighty, I was back in college when that series happened, I think. But, who would you rather have, though? I mean, that's why they brought in Fleury, is because, you know what? This is the year. We're going for it. We might stink next year. We might not stink, but we may not be as good next year with the cap crunch that we're going to be in. Fleury's on an expiring contract. We're going for it. How tight of a leash does Dean Evason have on whoever gets to start game one? Because, like you said, you want Talbot to be in there. And, all depends on how the next couple games go. But, I mean, is it going to be one thing where if Talbot loses game one and game two, it's like, all right, we got to put Fleury in, or does he ride the guy that's been there for the last couple of years?
That's a good question. Look, I don't know. The Wild haven't been able, they haven't had two goalies deep in the playoffs for a while where that has really even been an option. It's been like when they had Dubnyk, he was the guy. When they had Darcy Kemper when he was younger, he was the guy, I could go through the names.
Josh Harding,
Nicholas Josh Harding, Dixon Backstrom, right? Like they were just kind of, there wasn't a 1B. There was just, you're the starter, the other guy's the backup sort of thing. So I really don't know. What I will say is right now, Dean Evason, he's stubborn. He's stubborn with his lineups, which it's worked, but sometimes, like their power play, for God's sakes, is horrible. It's trash. Will not change a thing. Not even a question. And whatever, to each their own. And one thing to note right now, as at the time of this recording anyways, Fleury's going to start his third game in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So what does that tell us with only 2 games left for the season for the Wild? I don't know.
I don't want to put my tin hat on here, Romy, but I'm going to anyways, because people that are going to realize when we get to the playoffs, and if we have anything that has to do with NHL player safety, my tin hat will be at an absolute peak. But do you think Billy Guerin has anything to do with Fleury starting 3 in a row? Or am I reaching too far here?
I think Billy Guerin, yes, I think he's part of the equation. What I will say is if management wants to keep Fleury for another year, or even 2, because he said he's willing to sign a cheap but 2-year deal. His family's, I guess, settled in Chicago there. His kids are in school. It'll be an easier transition if they do want to move to Minnesota, or he can. I honestly think Billy Guerin just gave him his jet as part of the deal, and was like, you can fly to Chicago whenever you want.
As we learned from other stories from Alan Walsh, that's what Mario Lemieux tried to do, and that didn't work, obviously. I mean,
yeah, but anyways, so I think that if Fleury's starting, he's the guy for that series. I really do. And if Talbot's starting, I think the same thing. And I think that's an all-around thing. I don't think Evason and Billy Guerin cross lanes at all. I think they each are respectful and know that, like, this is my lane, this is your lane. And for the most part, they're not butting heads. It's like we're going into battle together, right? Like, so it'll be a conversation. It'll be management and Evason being like, this is the guy we're going with in this series. Down the stretch, it might be a little different, but for game 1, for game 2, game 3 in the first series, I think we're gonna see one guy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's St. Louis as well. Like, I think this is gonna be
what a battle.
Holy cow! Like that team has to go, and they're gonna have to play. I mean, no disrespect to possibly Dallas or Nashville. Like something could happen. We've seen crazy stuff happen in these playoffs, but then you have to play Colorado. Like, I know they've had their playoff troubles, but like, there's your reward of beating up St. Louis or vice versa. One of those teams has to go play Colorado in the second round.
Well, dude, I'm less worried about Colorado. I think the Wild and or the Blues are a way better. Like Colorado's a better matchup for them than the Wild or Blues against each other, because those teams are just going to neutralize each other. They're both deep. They both have great goaltending. They're tough. Like Delorier is a savage, man. The Wild picked him up the deadline. That guy is an absolute fan favorite savage. Anytime he even just like nudges someone, the XL Energy Center just blows up. It's unbelievable. Middleton too has been playing unreal. So I think the teams match up against each other. Obviously, the Blues have a little bit more scoring depth. Hell, they have 3 top centers and the Wild have 0, but no one has Kirill Kaprizov. And he could be a game changer. He really could. And if one of the goalies get hot, you got the veteran goalies on the Wild side, you get the young guns on the Blues side who've been there before, respectively. So I think whoever comes out of that series realistically could beat Colorado, because Colorado's not going to have it easy. They're going to win, they're going to win. We'll just say it right now. But it's not going to be easy. Kadri's going to be suspended, and I'm not even tongue in cheek. It's going to happen. You heard it here. You heard it everywhere.
The red mist, man. It's a thing.
I would put either of the 4 goaltenders in the Wild and Blues series up against Colorado's any day, honestly, especially in the playoffs. So I think the real boogeyman here is whoever gets out of that is facing Calgary, and Calgary's going to win the Stanley Cup this year. They're going to stomp everybody.
Jeez, like it's you never know. This could be Colorado's here. I don't see any changes from last year, but
Calgary will beat them. Calgary will beat them.
They are what Tampa was 3 years ago.
No, not even close.
Skilled. No. Not Andrei Vasilevsky goaltending, but that's a discussion for a different time. But, big games coming up here for Minnesota. Obviously, the playoffs coming up against St. Louis. Minnesota is tonight. They're taking on the Arizona Coyotes. I know that's a big-time matchup, taking on an NHL team that's going to be playing in a college bar next year. Almost got that flip-flop there, Roman. Almost got in trouble. But let's talk about here. Let's move on over to your neck of the woods where you actually are there. The Vancouver Canucks. Now, there is a microscopic chance that they could make the playoffs. All sorts of crazy stuff has to happen. Vegas has to win in regulation tonight and then lose their next 2. Dallas and Nashville have to lose all their games as well. Like, there's this whole crazy scenario that have it happen, but it's most likely not going to happen that Vancouver makes it here. But I tell you, the question I've been hearing all week in the last couple weeks is, why didn't they fire Travis Green sooner, and why wasn't Goudreau on the bench sooner? Because it might be a different story we're talking about right now.
Well, because Jim Benning was still around.
Bim Jennings, you're right, exactly. That's probably what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, no, what a disappointment, a disappointing decade for the Vancouver Canucks, coming off of that unbelievable phase of that team's history with the Sedins and Kessler and Burrows, and Hamhuis as well, part of that core. It was unbelievable. That was probably the best Canucks team, in that 4 to 6 year stretch that they've ever iced. And to see Boston turn it around and be able to continue to be competitive makes me absolutely sick, given that Jim Benning and that management group, though they were shackled by no move clauses and things like that, they could have made it work, because we've seen other teams in that decade, in the last 10 years, be in a similar situation and they've made it work. So that was really disappointing. I understood the plan. The thing is, the plan never changed. It was like, trade draft pick, like second round picks to bring in guys of kind of like Sven Baertschi, who are 24, 25, who didn't quite, play up to their high draft potential, but maybe could be reclamation projects. And let's be honest, none of them worked. Yeah. And they never deviated from that plan. And then they started trading first, and then they started signing terrible contracts. And it was just like 1 step forward, 2 step back. And as soon as he signed Tanner Pearson, whatever little hope I had for that management group was gone. And I was just on a tirade ever since. I think it was an absolute disgrace what Jim Benning and what Francesco Aquilini allowed to happen to this team throughout this 10 years. And you said it right there. Once Travis Green was out, once the management group was out, the culture shifted. And that's, at the end of the day, what the biggest problem was, I think. Because this is a ragtag group of guys. Yeah, there is a core, But they're at a crossroads right now. They have to decide, do we go forward with JT Miller or Bo Horvat? One of them has to go. Do we go forward with the defense group do we have? Or do we have to maybe give up something to get a contract off the books and go younger? Or are we going to, get as many pieces as we can for JT Miller and, again, continue to be young? Like, there's so many paths that this team can go. They have to stick to one, unlike Jim Benning, which was just stuck in a cul-de-sac going round and round and round, thinking that the same thing, the same plan would foster any different changes. So it's going to be a crazy offseason for the Canucks. Or, correction, it better be a crazy offseason, because if they go back and ice the same group, it's over. My hope for this team is over. Really? Their next season is over. And, it's the thing is, like, JT Miller's a $5.5 million contract. You have to decide right now if you're going to extend him and then shape the rest of the team, or move on now when he's pretty much a 100-point player. Like, and their defense is trash. They have to figure out how to move money off the books there and actually ice, even if the players are just decent, not bad players, right? And no disrespect to Tyler Myers, it's way too much money. I actually defend the guy more so than anyone. But, like, Tucker Poolman at his term, get the hell out of here. I love Brad Hunt too. You ain't winning a Stanley Cup with dirty Brad Hunt. And you got to give some of these young players a chance to develop with guys who can play around them. I'm sorry, Vasily Podkolzin had 26 points this year because he had no one to play with.
Yeah.
And Zuccarello on the Minnesota Wild, that's a pretty high example, given that, like, he played with, Kirill Kaprizov or whatever, but someone even who's just at, like, a second line level who could help him out a bit. We didn't see him with Horvat pretty much at all this season. And it's just one of those things. Like, there's a lot of talent on this team and there's a lot of value. Now we need a competent general manager who can come in and shape this team. At least go for something that's realistic, not whatever the hell Jim Benning was doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, and then it's never easy. We know. I mean, Brock Besser really, I think, is maybe the most high-profile signing you have to worry about, who does have arbitration rights as a restricted free agent. That's a big one. But the reason why I ask why is because, like, you see how, like, if this team makes the playoffs, are they having this kind of conversation? Because Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser, I think, two of the guys that have really paid off with the Bruce Boudreau hiring. And their numbers show, their play shows. They look a lot better. They look like they're, as I keep hearing everyone say with Bruce Boudreau, everyone when he's in there, everyone just has more fun. Even in the dog days of the season, they're just having fun.
Oh yeah.
That's what's really paid off here. Does Bruce Boudreau come back as the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks?
Oh, he has to. He wasn't given a whole season to see what he could do with a group that, like, okay, this is the group we're going forward with the season. Because he came in, he doesn't know what's going to happen at the trade deadline either, right? And based on what was it, 11-1 that was the run he went on, or 11-2 with the Canucks when he took over too.
There it is. Start, yeah.
So, like, they were going for it. So he just kind of came in and was playing with house money. He's like, I'm coming in relief, right? Like, I'm playing with house money. I can put my stamp on this team, and help switch the culture and see what happens. He became a fan favorite, which he does everywhere. Minnesota, they loved him too, right? His time with the Washington Capitals, loved him there. He's with Anaheim. Yeah, but his time with Anaheim, they loved him there too. Like, the fans love him. So that's great. That's putting butts in seats just to be able to chant Bruce, there it is, which again, the 360 picture, you need that. And B, he made, like you said, he made players who were in the freaking doghouse in Besser and Pettersson come out and play better. Even some of, like, the depth players who maybe didn't light up the lamp, they played for something. They played for Boudreau. I feel like he's a 3 to 4 year coach, but sure, maybe he can be that transition coach. And then when the team is, has a core, let's knock on wood again, to like that 2011 level or even close to it, then someone like a Vigneault at that time, or even on the management level, or they groom someone like a Gillis, can come and just put that stamp, the final pieces on and take them, to the Stanley Cup. I hope that's kind of what it is here. Regardless, he needs to come back next year. I know the Vancouver media and Vancouver Canucks Twitter, which is just crazy, likes to stir stuff up. And yeah, sure, maybe we've been hearing that Bruce Boudreau is not going to come back because, this regime didn't hire him. I'm sorry. You look at the stats and you look at how much the players love him and you look how much the fans love him. You owe it to the market and to your team on the ice to bring this guy back for, like, sign him to a 2-year deal. Like, what's so bad
if anything,
about that?
just sign him to a year. Like,
whatever.
I
yeah.
The fact that everyone feels like they have to sign a coach for 2 years. And I know some coaches want that. They want stability, but Bruce has traveled before. This is nothing new to him. I listen to the story of when he got hired with the Washington Capitals. He's in Hershey. He gets a phone call at 7:00 in the morning. He drives down to DC from central Pennsylvania, which, having done that myself, not necessarily the most fun trip because you kind of have to go through the mountains and whatever. Like, he's used to traveling. He played in, well, he played an actor in the Federal Hockey League, but he played that route. He played the WHA. He played the minor league route. Like, this guy knows how to travel. Give him, if he wants to, now, like I said, if you can get him for a year, try a year. You know what? See if it works.
Dude, it's not about the money for Bruce Boudreau. He owns a freaking I think it's like a minor league team.
He owns the USPHL's Hershey Cubs. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there you go. Shout out the Cubs. Actually, we work with someone at Amaze Media Labs who who their partner works with the Hershey Bears as well. So like that's just a cool connection. And no, Bruce Boudreau, he's an absolute gem. Like, I'm a fan of him too. Like, as a Canucks fan and as a fan of the NHL, I want Bruce Boudreau's last big hoorah to be with the Vancouver Canucks, a Canadian team. And I think he doesn't care what he's getting paid. He's made his money. He has his businesses. He owns a hockey team. He just wants to win, in Canada. Let's give him that opportunity. And you said, sure, don't sign him for 2 years. But let's be honest, a 2-year coaching contract is basically a 1-year coaching contract in the National Hockey League. To your point, Aquilini, he's got money to spend. He doesn't care. But to your point as well, Bruce Boudreau flew in day of Aquilini calling him. Like, he was like, "Do you want the job?" Oh yeah, sure. Aquilini called him when he was at like a dinner party. I think this was around Christmas time or New Year's anyways, with his wife. He told this story on Michael Russo's podcast, as they're just still super tight. Michael Russo, one of the best hockey writers ever, who covers the Minnesota Wild for the Athletic. Yeah. And he was saying that, like, I got a phone call. I called back. He offered me the job. I said I'd think about it. I told my wife. She's like, when does he want you there? He's like, tomorrow. Calls him tomorrow. I have a jet for you. Go to the airport. Hopped on a jet. Met the Canucks coaching the next day.
That's crazy. And that just show. And I remember
hockey guy
talking to. I heard a story when he got hired by the Capitals. Like, they were jumping up and down excited. Like, oh, I have to go tomorrow to practice for the Capitals. He's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, his wife is like, and she's part of that the Cubs ownership staff as well. Obviously, it's a joint thing they're doing over there, and like, super supportive, obviously, because I don't know how many people are just be like, oh yeah, hon, I need to go from Pennsylvania to the Pacific Northwest. Can I? She's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, do what you got to do. I mean, well,
it sounds like they're such a partnership to the core, and they're such a team. Like, the way, Bruce adores his wife, the way he talks about her in his interviews, and the way that he just he praises their relationship and partnership. It's something anyone should long for, in having a significant other. And it's really cool that they support each other. It's not just she sacrifices a lot for him. He sacrifices a lot for her as well. And he gets into in some of his interviews. He's, again, fan favorite, and in the locker room, it's working. Because you don't hire a coach just because he's a fan favorite. But I think in this case, when that's the icing on the cake, you absolutely do.
Oh, 100%. By the way, shout out to Sold and Great jumping in the chat. Yo to you as well. Welcome, of course, if you're just joining us to Tuesdays with Tyler starting at 2:00 Mountain Time every Tuesday here for the playoffs, and more possibly here on World Hockey Report, being joined here by Romy, Isha Jahromi, the co-founder of the Hockey Podcast Network. But of course, if you're watching on the Hockey Podcast Network YouTube channel, you probably know that. You're like, who's the guy with Romy? That's me, Tyler Kuehl, the insider of the insiders. But I will say this with Bruce Boudreau. The crazy part is, and you've probably seen this too, like the slowly infiltrating into the lower bowl, the footy fans, like the cheering section, the supporters section coming into to Rogers Arena there. I don't know if the Vancouver Whitecaps fans just got bored on some nights or whatnot, but if that keeps up, that's going to be fun, having a supporter section, because, geez, there's a reason why there's a Twitter account called the Platinum Seat Ghost, because the Toronto Maple Leafs are synonymous with having people in the lower bowl that are not necessarily fans. I know a lot of Leafs Nation's probably going to come screaming at me.
Madison Square Garden, okay, same thing.
Folks, I'm on your side here. But here's the thing, okay? There is a different type of fan base between the Canucks and the Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs, Scotiabank Arena, let's be honest, very corporate. No one can deny that. Unless you're sitting up in the 300 level in the obstructed view seats, probably someone got you tickets because they know someone that works for your business that one of the tall towers there in downtown Toronto. Vancouver's fan base, Romy, just as passionate. Leafs Nation's very passionate, but it seems like they're willing to show that more at Rogers Arena, because when the Canucks are bad, there'll be some games it's pretty empty there at the arena. When they're good, they'll show up in droves, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because Canucks can be really corporate as well. Like that whole Sedin era with Kessler and Burroughs, like, you know, it was kind of the same vibe. But what's different is that was 10 years ago. We were all like, the fan base right now that's going to the games, we were all in like graduating high school. We were too young. We weren't making any money to be able to go to these games. Now we're the ones who are very passionate. We're the ones who've gone through the pain, unlike those who were just maybe hopped on the train in that era and we're like, wow, this team's just ripping it up every year and then gets booted from the Blackhawks. Minnesota Wild fans are used to that as well, actually. But anyways, no, you said it there. Very passionate right now. You know, unlike Madison Square Garden and wherever the Leafs play now, the Canucks definitely are I think love the team a little bit more than just support the team. And I think that it really shows. It really shows on all avenues of social media, the nasty side, the good side as well. And no, it's a really good atmosphere now that even though they're not making the playoffs, that there's a bond between some of these younger players and some of the core pieces. And yeah, some are going to have to move. Things are going to have to shift around. That's professional sports. But I admittedly haven't gone to a game this year, but I know Dylan Casey, he's the co-founder of the Hockey Podcast Network, yeah. Tyler. He's gone to a few this year, and he said it's been electric. It's been electric with a team that's had drama all year and a team that, let's be honest, has not been that great in a relatively easier Pacific Division. So that's really cool to see. I usually try to hit up a game every Halloween time because that's like, for some reason, that's when the schedule makers put Washington in Vancouver, and, you know, any excuse to go see Ovi score a few, even on the Canucks. So I'll definitely be back next year. And I'm just really curious to see what the team does this offseason. It better be a good offseason.
Yeah, let's hope so indeed. Shout out to Mondo Gecko. That's Gecko. That's Gecko. I can't read. Mondo Gecko jumping in Let's Go Dallas Stars. Big game for them tonight, like we mentioned, taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. Canucks superhero intro, the best in the biz. Let's go, baby. That boy from Dylan Kaiser. I concur 100% on that one, Romy. You mentioned how Vancouver can be a little bit of or Vancouver social media and the fans on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot can be a little bit rough, a little bit tough at times. And it took me back to a conversation I had. So, oh gosh, how long ago was it? It was in I think the second wave of the pandemic on an old show I did. I had James Cebulski on, formerly of Sportsnet 650 there in Vancouver. And, of course, the voice of the EA Sports NHL Hockey Series. And I remember I was talking to him after we did the interview, because obviously we're talking about the Canucks and how this was early on in the season. We thought we had high hopes for them, hopefully. But I was talking to him like, what do you think is because he's been in Toronto, he's been in Ottawa, and he's been in Vancouver. Like, what is the worst in terms of fan base, in terms of hostility sometimes? Because Leafs Nation can be a little ruthless as well. Edmonton has that. Montreal as well. Every team in Canada seems like it has a certain bit of fan base. Love Ottawa. Love the guys up there sometimes. They got a lot of good supporters up there. Not quite as bad, obviously. But he's like, I asked him, like, which one's worse, Toronto or Vancouver? And he's like, Vancouver. Like, it's crazy. And then again, that just shows the passion of the fans, like you said, Romy.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to make this very clear too, and Dylan does a good job of reminding me of this and just like reminding me to catch myself when I say this. So I want to be clear. The fan base, those on the ground, your neighbors who you have a beer with and watch the game together, those who you interact via text or your group chat or whatever, those are like the real good, passionate fans. Canucks social media is the worst, bar down. And I don't know why people almost like have to distort their personalities on Canucks social media or like ramp it up to, let's be honest, a very political level. I'd say that's what separates it. Canucks Twitter, for some reason, is a political sports fan, and it's very much divided. Canucks Twitter is divided, and it's divided down the middle, whether you're left-leaning or right-leaning politically. And a sports team, a sports fan base shouldn't be that way. Sports should be fans, hanging all that crap up at the door before you enter the bar, pub, couch, and just love your team. That's why I love Olympics, and that's why I feel like, especially in Canada today, this will be like my last thing I talk about, with wrapping in politics. I feel like one of the reasons why Canada was so divided on the political front this year, more so than ever, was because the Olympics weren't what they were supposed to be, and the World Juniors was canceled. If we were all coming together rooting for our nation, I feel like even for a week, regardless if you were supporting the truckers or not, getting vaxxed or not, or whatever, we could join in arms for a sec.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I feel like sports, especially in Canada, especially in hockey, plays such a big factor in bringing our nation together. So long of the short of it, Canucks fans online will never be that because it's political. But you go to a game and it's night and day, and that's where even those who maybe you've battled with on Twitter, you'll probably like shake their hand, give a high five in the arena because it just gives off a different vibe. Yeah. But no, I will say that the social media for the Canucks is the worst. The fans are like any Canadian hockey fans. We come for the beer, the blood, and the goals, baby.
The beer. Haven't you paid for a beer at an NHL game in the last 5 years there, Romy? My gosh, it's $17 for a small.
Dude, I had to pay USD at the XL Energy Center, so don't even get me started.
Oh,
17 USD.
Yeah. I'm about to say, we go now, yes, from the States, we go up to Canada. We're like, perfect. $12 for a beer. This is easy. And then because the dollar is a little bit better. Wafatio just jumped in here. I mean, we only got about 10 or so minutes here on the Tuesday edition of World Hockey Report. Tuesdays with Tyler starting at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, or if you're Romy's case, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 1 o'clock Pacific Time, every single Tuesday for the playoffs. Wafatio asks, why does the league hate the Colorado Avalanche? This is probably a good way to maybe turn things here, maybe wrap things up here on this one, Romy, because I don't think anyone hates the Avalanche. I guess every single team has their, thoughts that the league has it out for them. I know when the Detroit Red Wings in the early 2000s, after the Hall of Fame 2002 team, people thought because they were playing Crosby and the Penguins in the finals 2 years in a row that the officiating was a little one-sided. So the Red Wings faithful, I know from talking to a lot of them, felt like that they were slighted, that the league had it out for them because they wanted Crosby to win. The Leafs Nation always thinks it as well sometimes, just the way games are called. Then again, I think the league realizes that when the Leafs are good, the league is good and all that stuff. So sometimes I don't quite understand that one. But Colorado, maybe I'm turning a blind eye here for Wafatio, but I don't really think the league has it out for the Avalanche, do they? I mean, they're only one of the better teams in the league.
They don't. They're just going off about the officiating. And I want to tell everybody right here. And again, I haven't watched every single team play this year, but our boy Neil has on the Hockey Podcast Network YouTube channel. If you're tuning into that right now, he's done a watch along and he's watched a hockey game from every team this year. And I've talked to him. I've talked to a lot of people covering, teams in various markets. I cover the Wild and Canucks. I've watched a lot of Avalanche games. The officiating has been bad league-wide because Wild fans will say the same thing. And there have been some bad games that the officials have called in Minnesota. There have been some horrid ones in Colorado as well. They'll say every single one, whatever. I think that every fan base will say that. And that's, if a fan base is saying that, again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. That means they're passionate. And I'm fine if you want to, bitch and complain about that. But I'm sorry, the league does not hate Colorado. The league probably wants Colorado to do well because, just even on the sports betting side right now, people are pumping so much money into Colorado to go far in the playoffs right now that the NHL, there's no way that they, want to hamper that by any means.
Yeah, and I get to the point. I remember Clayton Keller literally hog-tying Austin Matthews in overtime, ended up scoring the game winner, and that didn't get called. It is across the board. And for anyone who's watched the first few weeks of the Major League Baseball season, there's more than one Angel Hernandez, apparently. My goodness, the umpire has been horrible. It's
in every sport. Yeah,
it's every sport. There's people, I watch Premier League on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and there are some missed calls. At least there they have live VAR for footy, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. The sport where they play on a very big field, they have a bigger World Cup than the sport of hockey, let's be honest there. Even that sport has some issues with officiating. It's everywhere.
Dude, I'd say hockey and lacrosse are my number one sports, but mixed martial arts is my second, and it's not even pigeonholed to UFC.
I totally forgot. I was gonna do a Bruce Buffer intro for you.
Next time. But even in that sport, even on one card because they rotate referees, they'll call it differently. For a quick example, before we wrap things up, I think it was last event or 2 weeks ago, 2 illegal hits ended a fight. 2 refs, called the fight and went with whoever was leading in points won the fight at that moment, where the other one just DQ'd the guy who did the illegal hit and gave it to the guy who took the illegal hit. Within the same card, the fights were called, like they were called differently, the same type of ending. So it's in every single sport, folks.
Man, that's crazy. Wafateo says, I want Wes McCauley to be a ref for a game. Yeah, I hope he's okay. I haven't seen him a whole lot this year, man. I mean, not just the fact that the guy's entertaining, but like, I remember, wasn't last year's play? Was it last year's playoffs that he tore his hamstring in the playoffs or something?
Yeah,
like that?
yeah.
So he couldn't do the finals. I mean, he is one of the better refs, even though I've seen him before. Wes has made mistakes, but anyways, that's pretty much it here for this one here. Romy, we're going to let you go here because, you got a lot of stuff going on. And according to a hot mic that accidentally was on during commercial break, you had a couple big meetings today, so you probably want to recover a little bit here. But appreciate you having on, man. We're definitely have to talk again because let's be honest, this Minnesota Wild team, they have a real tough test coming up in round 1, but you know what? Knock on wood, this team could be playing a little bit longer into May, possibly. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Everyone support World Hockey Report, 12 Ounce Sports, and the Hockey Podcast Network YouTube channel. We have 2 live watch-alongs coming out today. The Vegas and Dallas Stars game, and then right after, Vancouver Canucks playing the Seattle Kraken. It's a big one, folks. Almost as exciting as Chicago and Philly yesterday. So
what a barn-burner matchup that was. 2010 called. They want their playoff game back. Let's be honest. Be sure to follow them, guys, at VI Sports Talk on Twitter, Romy, and of course HockeyPodNet and all of the hockey podcast, the hockey pigskin, the pigskin podcast, podcast network, all of them. Romy, thanks again, man. Take care. All right.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
All right, that was Romy from the Hockey Podcast Network here, wrapping things up here on Tuesdays with Tyler at 2:00 every single Tuesday for the playoffs here on World Hockey Report. Of course, guys, don't forget, you can find the best player tracking information for the playoffs coming up on Quack Stats. Follow them on social media, and then go check out their website and app today for more. So, yeah, we went the full 2 hours. I told everyone, I'm like, hey, listen, let's have some time here. 2 to 4, 4 to 6 for you folks on the Eastern Seaboard. I said to myself, all right, we might fill this up here because I used to do 3-hour shows by myself, so I find ways to talk myself into a slumber. It's okay. But appreciate you all joining us here today for this edition. We'll be back, of course, next Tuesday. But, of course, remember, tomorrow, play the You Can't Do That clip. Oh, you can't do that clip. I wish I could play that one there for you, Wafteo. Unfortunately, I cannot. I do not have the rights for it, but certainly someday I will find a way to get something going like that. But thank you all very much for watching this edition of World Hockey Report. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, noon Mountain Time, 2:00 Eastern Time, for Cody Janzen taking back over, and also noon and Mountain Time, 2:00 Eastern Time on Thursdays as well. That's right, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single week through the playoffs, giving you the best information, the best insight, and of course, the best guests here on World Hockey Report on 12 Ounce Sports and the Hockey Podcast Network. And of course, guys, remember, if you miss any of the show today or the past interview you want to look up, be sure to go to the World Hockey Report podcast. That's right. It's available daily. Thanks to the team at the Hockey Podcast Network. Just search World Hockey Report. It's right above me. WROLD Hockey Report. I mean, you guys can spell. You're a bunch of bright folks here. We all can do it. It's easy enough. Be sure to check us out every single day. Get the great interviews. Like I said, you missed the interview with Bruce LeVine later from the Dallas Stars. That's okay. You can obviously watch it on demand on YouTube on the Hockey Pod Network and or 12 Ounce Sports. But also you can listen to it as well because, you know what? I love my wife to death, but it's easy way to say, hey, Tyler, you don't need to see your face every single day. I understand. I don't take anything personally. Check it out on your favorite podcatcher. Lauren says this channel should live stream the Stars-Ducks game. I think it should be later on this week. They might. The Hockey Podcast Network might be doing that. Be sure to follow them as well. Romy says, thanks for having me on. As always, Romy, come on. You never have to say too much thanks, man. It's always great chatting with Romy. I've had him on a couple times at other shows before. This channel going to live stream one more Anaheim Ducks game before the regular season ends. Lauren, that is a question for Romy, and I think Romy will definitely answer that one for you as well. Awesome guy. And of course, once again, before I wrap things up here, congratulations to Ryan Getzlaf on an amazing career, finishing up his career this past weekend. Didn't want to play any road games, wanted to end his career in Anaheim. A great run for one of the best passers in the National Hockey League's history, as we saw with his last point. Holy cow, behind the back feed. But that is it, folks, for this edition of World Hockey Report. Like we said, be sure to check in tomorrow, and I'll be back next Tuesday. I said Stephen Ellis from the Hockey News, and I got one more guest coming on. We're going to do a little bit of a record with him, but you know what? He's a pretty cool guy covering a pretty cool team. I know you guys will probably love it here on World Hockey Report. Back tomorrow on WHR, guys. Thank you very much. Be sure to follow me at TJKU29 on the Twitter. We will see you all next time here on World Hockey Report.